Fussy Eaters workshop. My name is Lucy Thomas and I'm a feeding expert. I'm also a brand ambassador for Organix, and I'm a mum of 2 girls who are Molly and Isla, who are 4 and 6. Now this evening, the topic is Fussy Eaters, and I guess one question that is always put to me whenever I'm talking about weaning is, and it's a very common question, is everybody always says, how can I stop my baby becoming a fussy eater? And in short, I don't have a completely magic answer for you. However, what we are going to do this evening is discuss some tips and advice that hopefully will guide you through the weaning process and any bumps you might be experiencing along the way. But also just to say that babies do experience difficulties in the weaning process, and it just can be caused by so many different factors. And something that comes to mind immediately is teething. And my first daughter, she must have spent the 6 to 12 month weaning window constantly teething, and I just was at my wit's end, which sounds ironic because I'm a feeding expert, but I was incredibly anxious because she wasn't weaning particularly well, and she seemed to want to do was eat rice cakes. And I laugh now, but literally I really felt like she was surviving on the Organix Rice Cakes, which at the time was fine because I knew that there wasn't any junk in them and they were natural and organic. But what Molly was after was the resistance of a rice cake on her teething gums. She didn't want my purees on a spoon, and she had a head like an owl, and she didn't want the soft baby-led weaning finger foods I was giving her, because there just wasn't any resistance on her gums to really because they talk about teething being like ants wriggling in your gums. So she just wanted something to really kind of scratch that itch, I guess. So she ate an awful lot of fantastic Organix rice cakes. But there's other difficulties that can come along, like illness, tiredness. I mean, when we're tired, none of us can concentrate. And for babies, when they're weaning or having any kind of food experience, when they're tired, it's a lot to concentrate, and it's a lot of coordination. So they can be tired. They could be going through developmental leaps. So they could be learning a new skill, and perhaps a new skill that they are not up for learning at the same time is learning to eat. And even their mood. We all have good days, bad days, and if they're teething and they're learning a new skill and they're tired, their mood is going to be affected. So, I guess the reason I'm explaining all of these difficulties along the way is because it's hard, but we must try not to assume that just because any of these difficulties going on, we mustn't assume that our baby is going to become a fussy eater. Now, the reason I want to explain more about this is because it's very easy when we're going through the weaning process, particularly the early stages or that kind of 6 to 12 month window, when we're trying so hard to offer lots of variety and expose our babies to lots of different foods and textures, which is really, really important. And exposure of a variety of foods is key. But what we want to kind of keep in our mind, and this is what I'll try not to get too scientific about it, but there is something called food neophobia. And food neophobia hits at around about the time that your baby becomes incredibly mobile, independently mobile, confidently mobile, so walking independently. And what will happen is it will seem like all of a sudden the wide range of foods that maybe they've been eating throughout weaning suddenly shortens, and they only eat a very few set meals and foods, which is very frustrating and worrying for us as parents. But it is a natural part of their development. I went through it as a baby, you will have gone through it as a baby, and it's basically an inbuilt mechanism to prevent self-poisoning. So in a nutshell, once our toddlers become mobile and actively walking around, it's to stop them going picking wild berries and eating them or putting something toxic into their mouth. And as a reflection of that, what happens is that the actual foods that they eat becomes a bit narrower, and trying to introduce new foods can become quite challenging as well. This is at probably I'd say on average about 12 months old, because usually around that time babies are becoming more mobile and learning to walk. And it tends to peak at around 18 months old. So we can't really prevent that developmental milestone happening, and it's a natural progression, and that's what happens to all of us. And sometimes it goes on for a long time, and sometimes it could be 6 weeks, it could be 6 months. And in some severe cases, I see children as a feeding expert who are 6 years old, who are still incredibly food neophobic and eat less than 5 foods. So what I'm trying to impart on you today is that the entire weaning process that you're going through at the moment is to try not to think of your baby, no matter how difficult things are getting, as a fussy eater, because that real kind of phrase will perhaps have its place later on, but at the moment it's most likely down to other bumps along the road that happen when you are weaning. And so you are doing the right thing by offering a wide variety of foods, even if they don't appear to be eating them. They might be picking them up if they're having some finger foods, and they might be dropping them on the floor, but there is residue of food on their hands, which may end up in their mouth. Also, it can take up to 8 to 10 opportunities, and I'm sure you've heard this before, 8 to 10 opportunities of a new food before your baby begins to perhaps enjoy it or like it. And you know, it can be up to 15 to 20 times for older babies. So repetition is the key in terms of making sure that you're not just thinking, oh, well, they didn't try it that time, or they threw it on the floor, or they pulled a strange face, they mustn't like it. So it's very easy, and I did it a lot, falling in the trap of even as a feeding expert, thinking, oh, she just doesn't like it. And I hadn't got up to that 10, 15 times of offering it. And it's difficult to keep offering the same foods over and over again, but if they keep getting the favourite foods or the things that they do enjoy eating, like Molly with her apple rice cakes, then they're less likely to try new things as you're going along. So you want to kind of make the most of the window of opportunity of flavours and textures between the kind of 6 and 10 month bracket. And one of the things other people and parents tend to ask also is, if my baby pulls a face, a grimace, you know, is it because they don't like the food? And categorically, usually I would say no, it's just that they haven't learned to like the food. And something that I really want to kind of stress is that actually it's really important that we start off with vegetables. I know a lot of time in weaning we talk about all fruits, a bit of apple, a bit of pear, but babies are born with a natural preference for sweets due to breast milk. So fruit is actually really easy food to wean on. And really what would be ideal is weaning your baby on vegetables, and most particularly probably the bitter vegetables, the brassicas, the broccoli, the cauliflower, the spinach, those kind of bitter tastes that actually a baby has to learn to like. And they are going to grimace, they are going to pull a funny face, and they are likely to gag. The other thing I want to talk about with the gag reflex is on a baby, it's very close to the front of their tongue, because if you're baby-led weaning, they need to be able to gag and retch to move the food forward in their mouth. As a baby gets older into toddlerhood and a bit older, the gag reflex moves further and further back. And as obviously as grown adults, our gag reflex is right at the back of our throat. So they are likely to gag on bitter foods, but it's not because they don't like it. And it is about repeating and continually offering, and then perhaps doing a sweet vegetable after a bitter vegetable rather than a fruit which is intensely sweet. So I mean, for example, something like, I've got some green vegetables here this evening, something that might be worth doing, and it's very simple, but if we think how much babies love music and singing, and how their little faces just light up when you're singing to them, when you're smiling and when you're happy. And so something that I always do, which is called great greens, is make sure that you've got some steamed soft green vegetables, like I've got some broccoli here, and I've also got some green beans here as well. And the idea really is to make the experience of your baby being introduced to bitter vegetables something fun and exciting and interesting, and you're going to be showing that in your face by singing. And something you could do is you could pair the green vegetables with a puree, something you've got that's homemade. So you could have some pureed broccoli with your broccoli steamed florets, or some steamed green beans with your green bean puree, or something that I really do champion at the moment, which is the Organix veg jars. And the reason that I champion these so much is not just because they're organic, but because they are just vegetables. And there are a lot of other baby foods and weaning foods on the market which take green vegetables and they add fruit, apple or pear to them, and it sweetens them and it masks the flavour, and that's not really where we want to be going with our baby's palates. And so I do, as a mum, but as a feeding expert, really champion these veg pots, because this one is just broccoli, quinoa, sweet corn and olive oil. Now the sweet corn is providing a bit of sweetness, but it is a vegetable. So what you can do with your baby is you can pop some into a little bowl and have your vegetables that match it. So I've got the broccoli here that matches the broccoli in the Organix jar. And all you're going to do is you're going to sing. And it might be row, row, row the boat. It might be happy birthday to you. Or it could be a song you make up that how much you love broccoli. But the idea is that you're smiling and you're singing, Mummy loves the broccoli, dip it in the broccoli. Mummy loves the broccoli, it on my tongue. And you're sitting there in front and you're probably thinking, I'm absolutely crazy, and your baby immediately is going to be entertained, smiling, laughing. And of course, the minute they take their broccoli florette and you've dipped it in that broccoli puree, or they're going to, because it's bitter, but you're going to be there singing, Mummy loves the broccoli, and they are going to have a positive, fun experience. Even though they might be gagging or pulling a strange face, it is not because they don't like it, and it's not because they're being fussy. It's purely because they need to learn to like it. So that's my first little tip, is about pairing your vegetables with a vegetable puree and singing, smiling, having fun and being relaxed about it, and just accepting that they're not going to like everything the first time. So that's my pairing my broccoli with my broccoli puree. And something else that you could do as well is some babies might be struggling with texture. So like I was saying, how Molly loved the Organix Rice Cakes because they provided that real resistance on her gums. Some babies maybe who are a bit refluxy aren't coping very well with lumps. And something that's really great to do is to, obviously you could have your steamed carrot sticks, like I've got here, my cooked carrot batons, should I say. And you could pair that with a puree. I've got some of the lovely Organix butternut squash tomato lentil and olive oil. Oh wow. So you could, actually I've got a better one here because it's just carrot. So you could have some carrot puree with your carrot baton, and you could also include something, because obviously when your baby bites onto a carrot it's going to provide a bit of lumpy texture. So what you want to try and introduce is a bite dissolve food. And you could use something like this. I'm sure many of you are very familiar with these fantastic, I've even got them on my t-shirt, melty carrot puffs. And the brilliant thing about these is, apart from the fact obviously that they're organic and they don't have anything unnecessary added, there is no salt, there is no sugar, it's purely corn and carrot in these puffs. But the great thing, and the reason that I really love these, especially as a feeding consultant, is because the minute your baby sucks or bites them, they begin to dissolve. So they don't create any lumps or difficulty in the mouth with texture, especially when they're learning to deal with new things in their mouth. So you can pair the carrot puffs with some carrot puree and also a carrot baton to give them a broad spectrum of textures. But the important thing is here is if they're being particularly, I would say fussy, but difficult about the weaning stage, then you could use bite dissolved foods like this to combine with puree. I used to do it a lot with my daughter Molly, who had horrendous reflux, and she soon cottoned on to the fact that I'd only dip one end in. So I would definitely advise, if you dip both ends of your puffs or your carrot baton or your vegetables into the puree, so that when they get hold of it, they're going to end up with some of it in their mouth somewhere. So that's my tip for combining the baby-led weaning finger foods with your purees. And I think the other thing is important to offer the wide variety of shapes and textures. So, and working on things like pincer grip, even if your baby isn't putting food into their mouth, the important thing is they've got it on their hands, and that does involve getting a little bit messy. And one of the other things that you can do is similar to us with the great greens and smiling and singing. It's about doing something with your baby. So it's modeling and making sure that you're doing exactly what you would like to see your baby doing with the food that they've got. And so using your fingers, we can do something very simple, and it's just called popping puree. If I can get the jar open, there we go. So I'm going to pop some on my plate here, I've got. And again, it is a bit messy, but mess is good because it's all about desensitizing your baby. We talked at the beginning about how do I prevent my baby from becoming a fussy eater. Yes, it's about offering the wide range of foods and textures and tastes. It's about making it fun and relaxing, but it's also about making sure that they are getting to explore food. Because when we think about chefs' love of food comes from handling, manipulating ingredients and blending them together and getting their hands dirty, essentially. And that's what we want to do with our babies. So what you can do is, for the popping puree, is find your fingers and find your baby's fingers as well. You could just pop some little spots and dots of puree onto their high chair tray, and you could dip your own fingers in as well and hold your fingers up and see how loudly you can pop your finger. So you're going to listen very, very carefully, and your baby's going to be watching you very intently, and you're going to be dipping your fingers in, and you're going to go, pop. Oh, wow, that was a loud pop, wasn't it? Mummy's finger did a loud pop. Are you ready? I've got an orange finger here. Pop. Oh, wow, that was even louder. Shall we see? You can do some popping. Let's choose Tommy Thumb. Take your baby's hand, pop it into the puree, and see if you hold it there for them, or they might just do it themselves. And if you do it together, they're going to immediately want to copy you because you are their role model and you're like a mirror image for them. The other thing that's brilliant is to get a little mirror out. Have a mirror on the table and sit next to your baby and do this together. And they may well just cover their fingers in puree and smear it all over their face. At some point, their tongue is going to reach out and taste what's on their lips, even if it's just a very, very small amount of the food. Some other fun things you could do whilst you're looking in the mirror and working together is having some of your finger foods. I've actually got some green beans here, and you could show your baby how you brush your teeth like this. Oh, it actually makes a bit of a squeaky sound, this green bean. And you could show your baby, I'll put it on my teeth now, how they can rub it on their gums as well. And this is the way we brush our gums, brush our gums, brush our gums. This is the way we brush our gums at the lovely table. You're sitting at the table with your mirror in front of you, and you can show your baby how they can pick it up, and they might want to massage their gums with their green beans too, or combining it with some puree even as well. So another tip is to keep portions small. Keep portions small because babies at the start of their weaning journey, they're only sampling a taste, a few teaspoons full, and older babies, it's far less daunting to have a small amount on their high chair tray, and you can always offer them more. And also you'll feel far less anxious and frustrated about the waste and the amounts they are or aren't eating if you only have a tiny amount in a bowl or a container or in front of them as well. And just make it sociable. Make sure we're talking to our babies and doing some of the fun activities like the popping with our fingers or brushing our teeth with our vegetables, and also just having fun and singing and relaxing. And that way you're making it an entire experience for your baby, and also it gives you a little bit of a distraction too, because I know myself when I was having a challenging time with my first baby and finding it particularly difficult, I just needed a distraction myself, and singing whilst I sat with Molly, and I had some carrot puffs and hummus was my staple snack to model eating in front of Molly with a few crudités on the side, was it gave me a distraction so I wasn't completely focused on what Molly was or wasn't eating. And don't rush the meal. Some babies just like to eat slowly, and it might kind of feel like time has stopped, but they're really just having fun and learning about the food that you've offered them. And even if they are just smearing it all over their high chair or throwing it on the floor, it really is a learning experience. And encourage your baby to feed themselves or do the popping thing, because it will be messy, but it means that they'll find eating fun because they're in control. So keep calm, keep experimenting, and eventually your baby will begin to welcome new flavours and textures along the way. I just wondered if I should perhaps pause there. I feel like I've been going on, and I should stop and see if anyone's got any questions they'd like to ask.
That's great. Thank you so much, Lucy. That was really informative. I think we have got a question here in the chat box. So Philippa wants to know, can you use baby corn as a finger food?
Can you use baby corn as in a baby sweet corn or corn on the cob?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if you're doing baby-led weaning, there's no reason why you can't offer most finger foods to your baby. I would make sure that it is well cooked. And I know what does happen is what you're probably thinking about is that if they do bite a piece off, then it is going to end up in their mouth. But their gag reflex will be able to move it forward. But also there is advice not to offer things like hard apple. So I guess it would depend, because sometimes you can get baby corn that's actually in a tin, and the baby corn cobs in a tin, and they're actually an awful lot softer than buying the raw ones and steaming them yourself. I would probably go down the route of letting my baby have sweet corn, which is cooked very well, because it's really, really great for their pincer grip as well. So I wouldn't say no to baby corn at all. I would just make sure that you're watching very carefully as to any large pieces that are being broken off and coming into their mouth.
Yeah, that's a good one. I've not thought of that one before. You kind of steam it, don't you, to make it nice and soft as well.
They're wobbly when you've steamed them, but actually baby's gums can crunch off a bit. But it depends how well cooked they are. So obviously going overboard on the cooking would be great. But equally, you can offer small pieces of sweet corn for that pincer grip practice. So I think that would probably be another good one to do.
So what kind of other finger foods, like vegetable style finger foods, what are your go-to ones?
Oh, goodness me, any vegetable whatsoever, really. I think that in terms of offering different textures, it's really important. So if you had something like a tomato, when we think about a tomato, when you cut it open, inside it's got the seeds, it's got the juice, it's got the flesh, and it's got the skin. So what that is doing, which I think is a really great finger food, is introducing your baby to a variety of textures in their mouth all at the same time. Because one problem that does happen in the bump along the road with weaning is introducing lumps and textures into food can be quite challenging. And so making sure your baby has something like tomato in the very early days is a brilliant way of introducing a multiple textures food. Fruit, technically it's a fruit, but it has an umami taste to it, so it's not particularly sweet. And it's offering your baby all those different textures in their mouth at the same time, and it breaks down very easily as well, and it's very messy, so it's a great desensitizing one. So a go-to would be a tomato, definitely, first off. And I think also in terms of other textures and variety of shapes and colours is, in terms of having something like a pasta, using different pasta shapes, not always having the same pasta shape. I think that having, I have to say, these are fantastic at the moment. Obviously my children are 4 and 6, but these are our go-to on-the-go snack. And the reason I suggest these is because they're suitable for 7 months. They're another bite dissolve food. And what is brilliant is that they are actually made from corn and peas, and they've got tomato powder in them as well, and they are the melty veggie sticks. These can be paired with dips, purees and dips, things like hummus and a yogurt dip, a vegetable bean dip, the kind of things that offer a variety of different flavours that you can combine with something like this is just fantastic for your baby to self-feed, and for you to be able to give a really good balance of nutrition in the dip form, and to put them in the dip first so that the babies can pull them out and have them. And other texture finger foods, I know that the lady, I'm sorry, I don't know if it was a lady or not, somebody was asking about the baby corn. Something that I found really, really useful for homemade finger foods was making a veggie oat bar. So it was oats and cheese and grated vegetables and cheese and butter baked together, almost like a flapjack, like the Organix oaty bars, but it was vegetables and cheese. And it was very, very soft and break down easily, but they're a great on-the-go finger foods, particularly if you're baby-led weaning. Be able to get a lovely texture and a variety of flavours and vegetables in there as well. Oh, I think you're on mute. I can't hear you.
Yes, you're right. It's been a great session. Thank you very much. It's been very informative. And
I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
for coming on. It's been great. Just for everybody else, we've got some more workshops coming up tomorrow, and we've got an Instagram live at 3 o'clock. And we'd love to see you there. So you can find more information on our website. And Lucy, how can everybody get hold of you if they want to ask you some further questions?
Yeah, I can be contacted through mange2kids.com, but I'm also contactable through organix.com as well, where also you should go and have a look at the Wonder Den activities as well that are on there that provide some brilliant recipes